how did the left react to the crisis? Well, we talked about pensions. Great, I think we did a very good job on that, the issues around pensions, about EI, and other such issues. And we did a good job on it. At the same time, and I'm not talking just about the Canadian context, but all social democratic parties in the world, what I observe is that I don't think we made the case as clearly as I tried to do that this was not just a cyclical, normal economic crisis. There were much more fundamental causes to it, and I don't think we really addressed it collectively. So I do hope that eventually we continue thinking about this, even though there's not an easy answer, but we certainly need to do that. So what is the alternative? And again, what's the alternative to the new capitalism? If we want to build alternatives, it needs to be set in today's context. Margaret Thatcher, a few decades back, had the expression TINA. There is no alternative. And so we have to ask ourselves the questions from a progressive and social democratic point of view. Do we have that alternative, that simple alternative? And perhaps the answer is no, we don't have that one alternative. But what we do have, I think, is a sum of ideas, a sum of smaller alternatives that taken together can really present something different. And this is why, with my friend, I'm working on a book on economic democracy. We think it's kind of the idea, the cement, that would hold all these different alternatives together. And what do I mean by economic democracy? Well, simply that people should have power over the levers of the economy. And I really believe that we can't have real political democracy without some level of economic democracy. We can't have real political democracy when we have this incredible concentration and control over economic levers in the hands of a tiny, tiny proportion of people. So what are I talked a little bit about investment, because we talked about the economic crisis. What would be some of those alternatives? Well, we need to continue developing our credit unions and put less and less money into private banks. We need to look more and more ethical investment. And as individuals, we need to be more cognizant of where we invest our own money, and perhaps invest money in things that are more ethical. There's labor-sponsored funds that are a possibility to mobilize capital, but in a different means. We could set up local investment funds. Instead of sending all our money to get speculated and so forth on local markets, why not use part of our savings and our pensions and invest them locally to support co-ops, small business, and other projects in our communities? We also need to think how we collectively use the money that we have through the CPP, the Canadian Pension Plan, or other mechanisms that are already in our hands. How do we use them to further democratize the economy? Because this is the problem, right? We have money in our investments, in our pension funds, and that then go into these vast funds, and then that money, our own money, is sometimes then turns around and is used against us, isn't invested in the real economy. So we need to change that. And also part of, when I talk about economic democracy, it also means how do we have more power in our workplace? How do we give workers more power in their workplace where we spend a big part of our life? And so that's what I mean when I say we can't have political democracy if we don't have economic democracy, control over our lives on the economic space. Can we invest more in community economic development, mobilizing resources locally? In consumption, what are the mechanisms by which we can have more power over what we consume and use our spending power in a way that actually helps our economy, whether it's through co-ops or through other means. So now for the future, we need to decide what our perspective is. And I mean, what does it mean to be progressive? What does it mean to be left-wing? What does it mean to be a social democrat or a democratic socialist? And I guess that's part of the question. And this is a very, very fundamental, critical question for us to answer. So do we want to be good social democrats who want to better regulate capitalism and reduce some of its inequalities and some of its worst effects? Or do we want to be democratic socialists who want to build a different economic model, one based on an economy that people control, basically? So not just regulating capitalism, but replacing it. And this is a critical choice for social democrats throughout the world, as well as it is for the labor movement, the cooperative movement, and other social movements. So again, do we want a better regulated, softer capitalism, or do we want something that goes beyond capitalism? Do we want to be simply better treated by our masters, or do we want to be our own masters? Do we want to redistribute income, or do we want to create an economic model where we have less inequality in the first place? Do we want to redistribute income, or do we want to redistribute power? Which is a question that sometimes comes before income. So we have to decide. So let's learn of what has just happened to make sure it doesn't happen again. And let's make sure that coming out of this crisis, we actually use this time to build a better, a fairer economic model. Thank you very much.